Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another edition of Ramadan TV. Great to be here, very especially in the final days of Ramadan, where we are focusing on more pertinent issues. One of those being issues around widows and support groups and the type of support they receive from the community. To talk about this very pertinent issue is Suraya Nawab. She is from the Islamic Careline, and we're going to hear what they've been doing regarding supporting widows and other people who need support from the community and from their loved ones. Suraya Nawab, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and jazakallah for having me.
Trust you're having a wonderful Ramadan, and of course, talking about widows and a support group. It's very pertinent, very especially in the month of Ramadan. That doesn't mean that once Ramadan is over, we forget about them and they should just carry on per normal. What has Islamic Careline done about this issue regarding supporting of widows? What does it look like? What does the program look like? And are people benefiting from this type of a program?
Okay, so Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, with grace, guidance, and mercy. We seek in this and all matters. So Islamic Careline runs various support groups from those that include young moms, divorce support, bereavement, polygamy, and so on, as well as GBV support. So the widow support group is actually one of the support groups that the Careline is running for a number of years. So a few years ago, just to give you a background, the Islamic Careline for a while ago, a few years ago, had a whole lot of cases of young widows, through hijacking, losing husbands, through burglaries, accidents, and so on. And when we realized in terms of the supervision that there are so many young widows, and they're really not coping very well through the grieving process, we then started the Widows Support Group. It's been going on for a few years, and it runs intermittently as and when the need arises, either from communities or from the needs of the clients that we see at the Careline. So, as I said, it started off with young widows not being able to cope, and so it progressed over the years. And as I said, it's intermittent. It's not an ongoing program. Whenever we have a group, then we would recruit from the database of stats that we get at the office or through other organizations, mostly the welfare NGOs. So on the one hand, we have lots of NGOs handing out food parcels to widows who are not managing financially and so on. But we also have widows who don't need food parcels and yet are not coping with the grieving process and a way of life after the IDDA period. This has become very pertinent in the last 2 years, and I'm saying maybe 18 months since COVID started, because we realized that with COVID, we know there have been a lot of widows and orphans left behind due to COVID complications when spouses have passed on in hospital. It's become a different way of dealing with the support group, or processing how the members of the support group are coping, because with COVID, we all know that there is very little closure. It's not the normal, a person passes away and we have the ghusl and we have the janaza in the home. It's very unfamiliar in terms of how our janazas normally are managed in families and in homes. So with this, I mean, husbands are left at hospital or taken away in an ambulance, and whether it's 2 weeks or 5 weeks or what later, they get the sad news that they be called to the hospital because doctors have given up, ventilators, things like that. And the janaza actually doesn't even come home. And we're all familiar with that in this last 18 months, where janaza goes straight for ghusl and from there straight to the Qabristan, and with all the protocols for COVID in place. So that being the case now, I'm sure the viewers can understand that there's a different type of grieving, because as I said, there isn't closure where the janaza is in the home and you're praying around there, and then janaza is lifted up, taken to the Kabristan and things like that. So, in terms of the grieving of these widows as well as the kids, it's become very different to the normal grieving process. And we know that the Ida period we know is very important. So, what we do is we have recently started online support for widows as well while they're in the Ida period, and once they're out, we know the Ida period is not the only period that widows need support. And as I said earlier, widows and orphans are especially needy in our community, and we are told and we are taught to take special care of these people. So whereas a lot of communities do food parcels and things like that, we found a gap in terms of the emotional well-being of these very special people, because we know while widows are needed and so on, that du'as are also accepted. So for us, it was filling a niche where we could come in with the expertise that we have at the Careline in terms of caregiving and emotional counseling support. And so, yes, it's taken off, as you asked, Julie. It's made a difference to a lot of people. It's not a set group where there are members who join and then feel better about their lives and themselves and they leave, and then more people will join. So it's not a closed group.
Okay,
In the
so
past, we
Suraya, let me ask you this question. You seem to have focused on the younger widows due to what have been seeing recently, hijackings, car accidents, COVID cases, etc. Do you think it's different when you're doing counselling with younger widows as opposed to older widows? Or are the older women not coming through? Do they not require or not interested in that type of counselling, that they kind of just work their way through it like our grannies used to do in the past?
So okay, so let me qualify that. I said that the Islamic Careline started the widows support group many years ago when we realized we're having so many young widows left through crime related incidents and things like that, right? Accidents, trauma. And that's when we started many years ago. But the support groups that we're having presently are not based only on young moms or young widows. It's about all age groups, and because we know COVID has also shaken our communities in terms of the age-related deaths that we're seeing through COVID. I mean, many young people have lost their lives through COVID. May Allah grant them all Jannatul Firdaus. But no, it's not only young people. There are a range of different age groups, and the support groups presently that we're running are, as I said, not closed groups and not also not depending on age, especially, or whether they see themselves as young and old. A lot of older people, those that are much older, I would say after the 70s or so, yes, will prefer to do the normal. They do counseling because of that lack of closure and a way forward. But they prefer to use the traditional way of going through the Ida period and managing after the Ida period as a widow in the community. But for a lot of people, maybe I'm just giving a broad figure of about 70 years and plus, but a lot of people, even women, even in that age group, are very able and very proficient in what they do. They're not really ill and things like that. So yeah, the participants or the members of the widow support group vary tremendously depending on what the people want. But I agree with you. They are late women who have the family support, and then they depend more on the spiritual aspect of being widowed, and leave it in the hands of Allah and have that tawakkul and things like that. So it varies. It's not
Okay.
just
And I ask that question specifically because I get a sense, I could be wrong, I get a sense that older widows cope better because they've had a good life. So if they're widowed in their mid-70s, 70s and above, they are able to cope better because they accept the fact that it's time that, our time is up in the next few years or
yes.
whatever, but Allah knows best. Let's go for an ad break, Suraya. When we get back, I want to touch on another very pertinent issue in our community, and that is frail care centres and old age homes. Is there a place for these centres? Well, let's see what comes up. Stay with us.